The widow just wanted to visit her deceased husband's tomb. But a little girl pointed to the tombstone and asked a strange question. The tombstone man was here at dawn. Is he her ex-husband? The woman froze. That phrase would make your world collapse. If this story has interested you, be sure to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you are seeing us. We continue. The afternoon sun painted stretched shadows between the tombstones of the cemetery when Laura crossed the iron gates. His footsteps echoed along the way to stones as he held the hand of little Sophia firmly, who had been 5 the week before. The soft wind of autumn blew between the trees, making the leaves dance a melancholy ballet in the air. Laura straightened her navy dress and took a deep breath, feeling the perfume of the flowers she carried in the other hand. 3 years had passed since Raphael, his ex-husband, had been buried in that place. The pain still inhabited every inch of her being, but she had learned to live with the emptiness. Sophia was her light, her reason to move on, a precious gift conceived the last night they spent together. "Mum, why do we always come here?" Sophia asked, her brown eyes shining with curiosity. Laura smiled sadly, caressing her daughter's dark hair, so similar to her father's. "To remember, my love, to keep the beautiful memories alive," he replied, guiding the girl along the family path between the tombs. The family grave was, as always, well maintained, with some wilted flowers that she herself left 2 weeks ago. Laura began to organize the new flowers on the marble vase when a peripheral movement caught her eye. Among the shadows of the trees, a girl of approximately 8 years old was watching them. It had long and clear hair, wearing a simple white dress, and held something that seemed to be a small notebook. Sophia was the first to wave to the unknown girl, who responded with a shy smile and began to approach. Laura felt an inexplicable chill through her spine. There was something familiar and at the same time disturbing in that child's presence. "The man in this picture is her father," the girl asked, pointing to Raphael's portrait on her tombstone, her clear and serene voice like a crystal bell. Laura nodded, unable to form words for a moment. The naturalness of the question disconcerted her. "I saw him here yesterday at dawn," the girl continued, flushing her notebook distractively. "It always comes when it is very dark." The world seemed to stop for a moment. Laura felt the blood freezing in her veins, while memories of the wake flooded her mind. The coffin, heavy, the crowns of flowers, the eyes of grief, the moment when he should have thrown ground over the tomb, but could not complete the gesture. Something inside her had refused to accept that end. "What do you mean you saw him?" Laura asked, her voice shaking slightly. "Who are you, little? Are you here with your parents?" The girl smiled again, but this time there was something different in her expression, something that made Laura hold Sophia closer to her. "I always come. He draws me sometimes," replied the girl, quickly showing a page of the notebook where Laura saw traces that seemed to form incomplete faces. Sophia, who had been silent until then, loosened her mother's hand and stepped toward the girl. "Can I see your drawings?" Before Laura could stop, the mysterious girl closed the notebook with a sudden movement. "Now no, but maybe the other day he said you would come back." A group of people passed near, talking low, and when Laura turned her eyes to where the girl was, she had disappeared. Sophia pulled her skirt, pointing to a point between trees. "Look, Mom, she went there." Laura traveled the cemetery looking for the girl, asking the employees she found along the way, but no one seemed to have seen her. The sun was beginning to put on when he finally gave up the search, taking a sleepy Sophia home. That night, while putting his daughter to sleep, Sophia murmured something that made her heart jump. "Mom, the cemetery girl had the same notebook that was in that old daddy's box." Laura sat on the edge of the bed, stunned. "What a box, my love?" "The one that Grandma keeps in the attic. I saw when she was getting the old things," Sophia replied, almost sleeping. The room dived in silence, but Laura's mind was boiled. He remembered the hesitation when throwing the earth, the persistent sensation that something was unfinished. The words of the mysterious girl echoed in her head. "It always comes when it is very dark." That dawn Laura remained awake, watching the shadows dance on the ceiling of her room. For the first time in 3 years, he began to question everything he believed to know about the day Raphael left. Doubt, like a persistent seed, began to sprout in his heart. The next morning, Laura woke up with the sound of the rain beating the window. Sophia's words on the notebook did not come out of her mind. After leaving her daughter at school, she headed to her mother, Helena, determined to investigate the history of the mysterious box in the attic. Helena was in the kitchen preparing tea when Laura arrived. The chamomile aroma filled the environment, mixing with the smell of newly baked cookies that his mother always kept in the house. "What a good surprise, daughter." "But why did this guy happen?" Helena asked, noticing Laura's disturbed expression. "Mom, I need to see the things of Raphael who are stored in the attic," Laura said, going straight to the matter. Sophia mentioned a notebook, and after what happened yesterday at the cemetery, Helena left the cup that held to fall over the sink. The noise of the porcelain breaking echoed through the kitchen. His face paled visibly. "What is this story?" "Of a cemetery? And why do you want to move that things now?" Helena asked, her voice cheating on an anxiety that Laura had never noticed before. Laura told about the encounter with the mysterious girl, carefully watching her mother's reactions. With each word, Helena looked more agitated, her fingers drumming nervously over the kitchen counter. "It must have been just a child playing, honey. You know what the kids are like. They invent stories." Helena tried to suspect, but Laura realized that there was something behind that restlessness. "Mom, what are you hiding from me?" Laura asked directly, her fixed eyes on her mother. Helena sighed deeply, sitting at the kitchen table. "There are things that are better to leave in peace, Laura. Some truths only bring more pain." "What truths, Mother? Please, I need to know," Laura insisted, feeling her heart accelerate. After a long moment of silence, Helena got up and walked to an old cabinet in the room. From a locked drawer, he removed a yellowish envelope. "I received this a few weeks before Raphael left," Helena said, extending the envelope to Laura with trembling hands. "I never had the courage to deliver you. He asked me not to do so." Laura took the envelope carefully, as if she could burn her fingers. Inside, he found a letter written with Raphael's unmistakable handwriting. The words were cold, calculated. He asked Helena to help Laura move on, to let her bury love for everyone's good. "Why did you hide it from me all this time?" Laura asked, her embargoed voice. "Because he made me promise. He said it was the only way to protect you and—" "Other people," Helena replied, looking away. "Other people? What other people, Mother?" Before Helena could answer, a noise coming from upstairs caught their attention. The sound of steps in the attic made Laura freeze. "Is anyone up there?" asked Laura, already getting up. "Impossible, honey. The attic has been locked for years." Helena has responded quickly, but Laura had already climbed the stairs. The attic was exactly as Laura remembered. Piles of dusty boxes, furniture covered with white sheets, and the characteristic smell of closed place. But something was different. A cardboard box, once sealed, was open, its content partially exposed. Laura approached with caution. Between old books and photographs, he found a black cover notebook, his yellowed and time-stained pages. As he opened it, his heart almost stopped. They were drawings, dozens of them, made by Raphael's hand. Cemetery's partially erased faces, and on several pages the face of a girl who looked strangely familiar. "This is not possible," Laura murmured, flipping through the pages with trembling fingers. On the last page of the notebook, an annotation caught his attention. "She always comes back, always observes. I can no longer pretend I don't see her." The sound of something falling downstairs made Laura startled. When he went down the stairs, he found his mother sitting on the couch, paler than ever. "Marina called," Helena said, referring to Laura's younger sister. "She wants to visit us on the weekend." Laura felt a chill through her spine. Marina, her youngest sister, had not visited her family for 3 years since Raphael's funeral day. And now, just when the first pieces of this puzzle began to fit in, she decided to go back. That night, Laura couldn't sleep. The notebook found in the attic rested on his bedside table, like an object loaded with secrets ready to be revealed. Sophia slept in the next room, her soft breath echoing down the hallway through the ajar door. A noise from the kitchen made Laura sit abruptly on the bed. The clock marked 3:15 in the morning. He went down the stairs silently, his heart hitting rapidly. The moonlight light crossed the kitchen window, creating unsettling shadows in the furniture. All cabinets were open. Laura was absolutely sure of having closed them before going up to sleep. On the table, he found something that made his blood freezing. A children's drawing made with red wax chalk showing 3 figures hand in hand, a woman, a man, and a girl. "Mom!" Sophia's voice came from the stairs, making Laura start. "There's someone singing up there." Laura climbed the stairs running, taking Sophia on her lap. The second-floor corridor was silent, but a smooth smell of violets, the perfume Marina always wore, hovered in the air. "What music did you hear, my love?" Laura asked, trying to keep her voice calm as she checked every room. "The one that Dad sang for me to sleep," Sophia replied, sleepy. The cemetery girl was singing. Laura felt a shiver traveling her spine. Raphael had a special song that sang to her during pregnancy, a melody he said he had composed. How could Sophia know her? The next morning, Laura decided to visit the municipal archive. He needed to find any information about Raphael before their marriage. Something in the drawings of the notebook, the cemetery girl in the inexplicable coincidences, suggested an older and more complex story. In the file, an elderly employee answered her with a kind smile. "I seek records of Raphael Müller between 1995 and 2000, Laura explained, trying to keep her voice firm. After a few minutes of searching, the employee returned with a yellowish paste. "I found something interesting," she said, adjusting the glasses. "There is a record of Raphael Müller as a volunteer teacher in an orphanage during this period." Laura had never known that Raphael had worked with children. Flipping the documents, his eyes settled in a black and white photograph. A group of smiling children next to Raphael younger, and among them. Laura had to lean on the table so as not to fall. A girl with features identical to Sophia's. "What is her name?" Laura asked, pointing to the child in the photo. The employee consulted the back of the image. "Alice Villar, but it's weird. There are no other records beyond this photo." Laura photographed the documents with her cell phone and left the municipal archive with more questions than answers. On the way home, he decided to pass his mother's house again. I needed to understand more about Marina's sudden decision to return. Helena was in the garden when Laura arrived. Seeing her daughter, she dropped the watering can. Marina called. "Again," Helena said without waiting for Laura to ask. "She doesn't come alone." "What do you mean?" Laura felt her heart accelerate. "She said she's bringing someone who needs to see us a lot," Helena replied, her voice shaking slightly. "Laura, there's something I need to tell you about your sister, about the day of the wake." At that moment, Laura's cell phone vibrated. It was a message of an unknown number. Some secrets need to be buried for Sophia. Laura looked at her mother, who now cried silently. "What do you know about Alice Villar?" asked Laura, showing the file of the file. Helena paled to see the image. "Where did you find this?" "In the municipal archive, Mother. Who is this girl? Why is she identical to Sophia?" A car noise interrupted the conversation. A taxi stopped in front of the house. Laura felt her legs weak when the passenger door opened. Marina was back, and I wasn't alone. Marina descended from the taxi with the same elegance as usual, her black hair contrasting with light skin. Beside him, an elderly woman supported by a cane watched the house with a penetrating look. Laura immediately recognized those eyes, were the same as the girl in the orphanage photo. "Donna Brina needed to talk to you a lot," said Marina, her voice shaking slightly. "She was director of the Santa Clara orphanage." The lady approached. Laura, her wrinkled hands holding a yellowish envelope. "You have the same eyes of her," he murmured, studying Laura's face with intensity. Helena quickly led them into the house. The room atmosphere was loaded with tension as Donna Brina settled. On the old couch, Marina remained for her teaching, avoiding looking straight at her sister. "I came because I can no longer carry this secret," said Donna Brina, her weak but determined voice. "Alice deserves the truth to be known." Laura sat down, feeling her legs weak. "Alice Villar, the girl in the photo. Yes, answered the lady, opening the envelope. And it's not coincidental for your daughter to be so similar to her. Raphael assured that it would be like this. The sound of something breaking in the kitchen interrupted the conversation. Helena had dropped a cup. Her hands trembled visibly as she tried to clean her shards. "Mom, you knew everything, don't you?" asked Laura, a sudden understanding taking over her being. Helena nodded slowly, tears running down her face. "I just wanted to protect you, daughter. Marina made me promise." "Protect me from what?" Laura demanded, her voice rising an eighth. Donna. Brina extended an old photograph. In it, a young woman was holding a baby in her arms. Beside him, Raphael smiled, younger, more carefree. "This is Carmen Villar, Alice's mother," explained Donna Brina. "She worked in the orphanage with Raphael for 2 years. When she found out she was sick, she made Raphael promise she would take care of Alice." Laura felt her world spin. "But what this has to do with—" "Raphael loved Carmen," Marina interrupted, finally breaking her silence. "And when she left, he was obsessed with maintaining his promise. Alice was everything to him. Until you know you," continued Donna Brina. "Raphael saw in you a chance to start over, of creating a new family. But Alice, she never agreed to be replaced." Laura remembered the girl in the cemetery, the notebook, with drawings, the songs that Sophia inexplicably knew. "Where is Alice now?" Laura asked, fearing the answer. Marina stepped forward, her hands rooting nervously. "She never stopped watching you. Raphael knew that. That's why he—" A noise coming from the upstairs made everyone shut up. Light steps were the hallway, followed by the soft sound of a family melody, the lullaby song Raphael used to sing. "Sophia is at school," Laura whispered, feeling a cold in her spine. Donna Brina held Laura's hand with surprising force. "There are things that can't be explained. My dear, Alice always had a special gift. Carmen said she could be in 2 places at the same time." "Why are you telling me all this now?" asked Laura, her voice barely coming out. "You took another envelope out of your bag. It's sealed with red wax. Because Raphael left specific instructions. This envelope should be given to you when Sophia turned 5. Within it is the truth about the day he decided to disappear." Laura took the envelope with trembling hands. Just as he broke the seal, all the lights of the house went out. In the dark, the sound of the melody got stronger, closer. And then a children's voice echoed along the stairs. "Finally, you will understand, Laura. Why did he have to choose?" In the dark of the room, Laura squeezed the envelope between her fingers, her heart beating so hard that she seemed to echo through the walls. Marina lit her phone flashlight, partially illuminating the environment. The beam of light revealed Donna Brina still sitting on the couch, her serene face contrasting with the tension of the moment. "Alice, dear," the lady called, her soft, controlled voice. "Come here." The steps on the stairs ceased. The silence that followed was almost deafening. "She has always been that way," continued Donna Brina, now heading to Laura. "Appearing and disappearing like a breeze. Carmen said it was a special gift, but Raphael, he saw something else." Laura opened the envelope carefully, her hands shaking. Inside, he found several handwritten pages, Raphael's unmistakable handwriting by filling each space. Started reading aloud. "Laura, my love, when you read this letter, Sophia will have turned 5, the same age that Alice was when I met her. I know you should be confused, maybe even angry, but I need you to understand. Everything I did was to protect you both." Helena approached, sitting next to her daughter. Marina remained in the window, watching the dark street. "Carmen was more than a co-worker," the letter continued. "She showed me a world that I didn't know exist. Alice was special from baby. She could see things others didn't see, being in places that seemed impossible. Carmen called it the gift of shadows. When she got sick, she promised me that she would protect Alice, who would help her control her gift." Laura stopped reading for a moment, remembering the girl in the cemetery, the drawings in the notebook, the songs that Sophia inexplicably knew. But Alice climbed too much, the reading went on. "After Carmen left, she refused to get closer to anyone else. Until I met you, Laura. For the first time in years, I felt that it could have a normal life, to form a family. Alice seemed to accept at first until... A noise from the kitchen interrupted the reading. Donna Brina got up with difficulty. Until she finds out about Sophia, the lady added. Alice always knew that Sophia would be special, like her. What exactly are you saying? Asked Laura, her voice shaking. Marina finally turned to face her sister. Sophia inherited the gift, Laura. That's why she sees Alice. That's why she knows. The songs, the drawings. No! Laura stood up abruptly. Sophia is a normal child. She... Normal, how was I? A child voice echoed through the room. In the kitchen doorspan, a girl in a white dress was still. It was no longer the child of the drawings or the cemetery. It looked older, almost a teenager. Alice, whispered Donna Brina, you grew up. Time passes different in the shadows, said Alice, taking a step toward them. Raphael knew that. He understood that I needed room to grow, to become who I really am. Laura continued to read the letter, her now firmer voice. When you learned that you were pregnant, Laura, I realized that Sophia would carry the same gift. Alice came to me that night, not as the child I met, but as someone who existed between two worlds. She showed me what could happen if I didn't make a decision. What decision? Asked Laura, looking straight at Alice. He needed to disappear, said Marina, tears running down her face. So Sophia could grow without the pressure of two worlds, colliding. So you could create it without knowing the weight it carried. And you helped, Laura accused, finally understanding. You and Mum helped Raphael staging everything. Helena sobbed softly. He convinced us that it was the only way to protect Sophia. Alice showed us. She made us see. The light suddenly returned, making everyone blink suddenly. Alice was still there, more solid and real than ever, her fixed eyes in Laura. Raphael is not really far, said Alice, her voice changing, becoming more mature. He watches Sophia every day, ensuring that she learns to control the gift without suffering as I suffered. And now... Laura's phone rang, interrupting the moment. It was the school of Sophia. Mrs. Laura, sorry to bother, but something happened. Peculiar with Sophia today. She was in the courtyard during the recess and, well, some children say, they saw her in two places at the same time. Laura headed to school with Alice, sitting silently in the passenger seat, a presence that now seemed as real as any other. Donna Brina had insisted on accompanying them, while Marina and Helena remained in the house, organizing the documents and photos that told the full story. The school courtyard was taken by an unusual fog for that time of day. The director was waiting at the entrance, her face showing a mixture of worry and fascination. Sophia is in the ward, she said, guiding them through the corridors. She's fine, just different. Upon entering the ward, they found Sophia sitting on the stretcher, drawing quietly. Beside him, over the nightstand, there was an identical notebook to what Laura had found in the attic. Mom, Sophia smiled as she saw them. Alice taught me how to make the drawings just like Dad. Laura froze. Do you know Alice? Of course, she has always been here, Sophia replied naturally. She helps me understand when I see myself in two places. Alice approached Sophia, and for the first time, Laura saw a genuine smile on her face. For you are much stronger than I were at your age, Alice said softly. Donna Brina supported her cane, watching the scene with teary eyes. Carmen would be proud of both. Laura took the drawings that Sophia had made. They were different from the usual scribbles of a 5-year-old, had depth, shadows and light, like Raphael's. In one pages, there was the portrait of a man watching. From afar, partially hidden by a tree. It's Daddy, Sophia explained. He always stays there in the park after school taking care of me. Laura's heart shot. Sophia, have you seen your father? Not as we see other people, said Sophia, exchanging an accomplice look with Alice. It's like when I see myself in two places. It's real but different. Alice gently touched Laura's shoulder. Raphael never wanted to abandon you. He understood that he needed to get away from the normal world to help Sophia develop his gift. How Carmen did to me. But why all this staging? Asked Laura, her embargoed voice. Why don't you tell me the truth? Because you needed to create. Sophia without fear, replied Donna Brina. Fear is what makes the gift dangerous. Carmen discovered it the worst way with me. Sophia got out of the stretcher and took Laura's hand. Mom, do you want to see where Dad is? Alice can take us there. Laura looked at Alice, who now seemed closer to her age if time had ruled normally for her. Just as I have been taking care of Sophia all these years, said Alice, through the shadows between the worlds. The fog outside had intensified, creating a white veil that seemed to separate reality into layers. Sophia held Alice's hand with her free hand, and together the three walked towards the school park. Raphael is waiting, said Alice softly. He knew this day would arrive, when Sophia was ready, when you were ready. The fog began to dissipate at a specific point of the park, revealing a familiar figure sitting on a bench under a large tree. Laura felt her legs weakened by recognizing Raphael just as she remembered him, but with a deeper, wider look. He smiled, that same smile that had captured his heart years ago. They are special, aren't they? He said, proudly looking at Sophia and Alice. Our shadow girls. The school park was wrapped in a fog that seemed to dance around them, creating a world apart where the impossible became real. Laura remained immobile, her eyes fixed in Raphael, trying to sue reality before her. How? It was all that could whisper. Raphael got up from the bank, maintaining a respectful distance. It's complicated to explain something that I don't even understand myself. Carmen tried to teach me for years, but there are things about the gift that go beyond our understanding. Sophia, still holding the hands of Laura and Alice, smiled. It's like playing hide-and-seek, Mom, but with the whole world. Alice nodded, her face showing wisdom beyond her apparent years. Sophia understands instinctively what I took years to learn. Carmen was right. Dom goes from generation to generation, getting stronger. But why pretend all this time? Laura asked, her embargoed voice. Why make me believe you had... Because you needed to create Sophia free from the weight of knowledge, Raphael interrupted softly. Fear, anxiety, constant concern. This is what turned my presence into a risk to her development. Donna Brina approached, supported by her cane. Carmen discovered this to me. The more she tried to protect me, the harder she became controlling the gift. Her fear fed my instability. But now it's different, Alice continued, her shape slightly oscillating on the fog. Sophia grew up feeling safe, loved, normal. She can move among the worlds without fear, because you, Laura, never made her feel different. Laura watched her daughter, who played distractedly with the shadows projected by the fog, making them dance like invisible puppets. All these years have you been watching us? Raphael stepped forward, his eyes shining with contained tears. Every moment, every smile, every tear. Alice helped me create a space between the shadows where I could be present without interfering. The drawings, Laura understood suddenly. The notebook in the attic. It was my way of documenting, explained Raphael. Every manifestation of the gift, every progress of Sophia. Carmen did the same to me when Alice was little. Sophia let out her holding hands and ran to her father, hugging him naturally, as if they had never been separated. The gesture made Laura's heart tighten. And Marina, why did she get involved in all this? Your sister has a more important role than you might think, said Donna Brina. She is like me, a guardian, someone who can see and understand the gift, even without possessing. Carmen chose her before leaving. The fog around them began to move differently, creating patterns that resembled the drawings in Raphael's notebook. Sophia laughed, enchanted. Look, Mom, the shadows are dancing. Laura wondered, marveling, as her daughter controlled her fog with soft gestures, turning her into shapes and figures that seemed to tell silent stories. Alice joined her, and together they created a spectacle of light and shadow that challenged understanding. It was never my intention to cause so much pain, said Raphael, now next to Laura. But it had to be like this. Sophia needed to develop her home naturally, without the weight of expectations or fear. And now? Asked Laura, her voice barely passing a whisper. Now, said Alice, her solid again. The real journey begins. Sophia is ready to understand who she is, and you're ready to accept this new world. The fog began to dissipate slowly, revealing the school park in its normal form. But something had changed. Laura could see now, in the shadows between the trees, in the reflections of the windows, a whole world that was always there, waiting to be discovered. "Come, Mum," Sophia called, extending her hand. "I want to show you where Alice and I played." Laura looked at Raphael, who nodded kindly. "Go," he said. "It's time for you to know the other side of the shadows." Helena's house had become a revelation center when everyone returned from the school park. Marina was waiting on the porch, holding an old box that Laura had never seen before. The afternoon sun launched eyeshadows lengthened by the garden, and now Laura watched them with new eyes, aware of the hidden world that dwelt between them. "I found this in Carmen's old room in the orphanage," said Marina, carefully opening the box. "These are the records she had on the gift since she discovered in Alice." Inside the box were diaries, photographs, and small objects that seemed to vibrate with their own energy. Sophia approached, fascinated by a violet crystal that emitted a soft shine. "The crystal of focus," explained Donna Brina, smiling to see the girl's interest. "Carmen used it to help us control the most intense manifestations of the gift." Laura took one of the diaries, recognizing the same energy she had been in Raphael's notebook. The pages were filled with delicate handwriting and detailed drawings of children in different states of manifestation of the gift. "That's why you're always so close," Laura told Marina. "You knew from the beginning." Marina nodded, silent tears running down her face. "Carmen found me when I still worked as a volunteer in the orphanage. He saw something in me, an ability to understand the gift without possessing it. He trained me to be a guardian, like Donna Brina. And when Carmen left," Alice continued, her now perfectly visible form in the light of dusk, "Marina became my protector. It was she who helped Raphael understand what needed to be done when Sophia was born." Helena appeared at the door with a tea tray, her hands still shaking slightly. "I always knew there was something special on both of you," she said, looking at Sophia and Alice. "But I never imagined—" "Dom has always been in our family," explained Donna Brina, accepting a cup of tea, silently passing through the generations, waiting for the right moment to manifest in all its strength. Sophia played with the crystal, making him float softly between her hands. Alice watched her with a proud smile, like an older sister. Raphael's drawings, Laura began, a new understanding emerging. They were not just records, they were maps. "Maps of the paths between the worlds," confirmed Raphael, his voice coming from a shaded corner of the room. "Every trait, every shadow, shows a possible path through the veil of reality." Laura watched as Sophia and Alice began to play with the shadows on the wall, creating forms that seemed to come to life of their own. The fear he once felt was replaced by a kind of amazed admiration. "And now?" she asked, looking at Raphael. "How do we follow here?" "Together," he replied, emerging from the shadows to be by her side. "Sophia needs us all. Her strength as a mother, my experience with the gift, Alice's wisdom, Marina's protection." Donna Brina got up, leaning on her cane. "The gift is neither a curse nor a blessing. It is a responsibility. Carmen understood that, and now it is our turn to honor his legacy." The shadows in the garden began to lengthen even more, creating complex patterns that seemed to tell old stories. Sophia ran out, followed by Alice, both laughing as they danced among the veils of reality. "She will never be alone," said Marina, putting her hand on her sister's shoulder. "None of them will be." Laura watched her daughter playing with the shadows, her heart overflowing with love and understanding. The previously broken world was now more complete than ever, filled with infinite magic, mystery, and possibilities. The weekend came with different softness. Laura's house, once silent and charged with secrets, now pulsed with new energy. Sophia had turned her room into a dancing shadow kaleidoscope, while Alice taught her to better control her gifts. "Each shadow has its own music," explained Alice, moving her hands in the air like a conductor. "You have to learn to listen before trying to drive them." Laura watched from the door, marveling at the harmony between the two. Raphael had decided to be closer, occupying the guest house in the back of the ground, a space that curiously had always been there, but Laura had never noticed before. "It is fascinating how the gift can change our perception of reality," said Marina, who had come to bring some more diaries of Carmen. "That house has always existed in the shadows, waiting for the right time to materialize completely." Donna Brina spent long periods with Sophia, sharing stories of when she and Carmen were young. "You had a special way of telling the stories, making the shadows on the wall illustrate every moment you described. Carmen would love to see this," she said, noting Sophia recreates one of the stories with her own shadows. "She always said the gift would be stronger with each generation." That afternoon, while organizing Carmen's diaries with Marina, Laura found a photograph that made her heart stop for a moment. She showed Carmen young, pregnant, next to a man who looked a lot like Raphael. "It's Alice's father," Marina explained softly. "He also had the gift, but in a different way. He could see through the shadows, but not control them." "So Carmen chose it," Raphael added, emerging from a nearby shadow. "She knew the gift needed to be nourished, understood, not feared." Laura studied the most closely photography. "And that's why you chose me?" Raphael sat beside him, his hands almost touching. "I chose you because your heart has always been open to the impossible, even without knowing. And when Sophia was born, I saw in her eyes the same brightness that Carmen described in Alice." A cry of joy coming from the garden attracted everyone's attention. Sophia had created a living shadow theater where figures danced and told stories. On their own, Alice was by her side, guiding her with soft gestures. "The gift is growing faster than we expected," said Donna Brina, supported by her cane. "We need to start formal training soon." "Training?" asked Laura, a twinge of worry in her voice. Marina took one of Carmen's oldest diaries. "There are exercises, techniques that help channel the gift. Carmen has developed their own method, combining what he has learned from several special children over the years." The pages of the diary reveal detailed drawings of breathing, meditation, and shadow control exercises. There were also notes on the importance of emotional balance and family, love in the development of the gift. "Sophia has something that Alice didn't have at the beginning," said Raphael, looking lovingly at the two girls in the garden. "A complete family that understands and accepts who she is." Laura watched her daughter create whole worlds with the shadows, her face illuminated with joy. Alice, by her side, finally seemed at peace, as if she had found her true purpose. "But there is still a long time we need to understand," Marina continued, flipping through another diary. "Carmen left clues about others like Sophia and Alice, scattered around the world, people with the gift living in the shadows, waiting for the right time to reveal themselves." A soft wind blown through the garden, making the shadows dance differently. Sophia stopped her joke, her eyes fixed at one point beyond the fence. "There's someone else like us around," she said simply, her voice carrying a certainty beyond her years. "I can feel in the shadows." Alice nodded, her eyes also focused on the same direction. Carmen was right. It's time for the circle to complete. Laura and Raphael exchanged worried glances, while Marina quickly consulted Carmen's diaries. Donna Brina, however, smiled serenely. "Finally," the lady murmured, "the advice of the shadows is gathering again." The night fell gently over the city, bringing with it a different atmosphere. The garden of Laura's house had turned into an almost mystical space where the shadows looked more alive than ever. Sophia and Alice were sitting in a circle of violet crystals, similar to what they found in Carmen's box, while Donna Brina organized old candles around them. "The advice of shadows," explained the lady, lighting each candle carefully. "It's not a formal group. It's a natural meeting of those who share the gift when the moment requires." Marina fraggled Carmen's diaries, seeking more information. "Here," she finally exclaimed, "Carmen wrote about the last board meeting 25 years ago. That's when she met Alice's father." Laura watched everything with a mixture of fascination and apprehension. Raphael remained by his side, his presence a source of silent comfort. "The shadows are calling," Sophia said softly, her eyes shining in a special way. "They are coming." As in response to the girl's words, the shadows in the garden began to move, differently, creating circular patterns that seemed to be pulsed with their own life. Alice got up, her body emanating a soft light. "I can see them," she said, smiling. "They are like us." From the shadows between the trees, shapes began to emerge. First an elegant lady with silver hair, then a middle-aged man carrying an old book, and then a young woman who didn't look much older than Alice. "Elizabeth, Donna." Brina greeted the silver-haired lady with a warm hug. "How long, my friend?" "Brina," answered Elizabeth, her musical voice carrying a slight British accent. "Carmen always said that this day would come, when a new generation of the gift manifested with all its strength." The man with the book presented himself as Professor Thorin, a scholar of the gift who had devoted his life to document his manifestations around the world. The young woman, Juna, was her daughter and also a bearer of the gift. "Sophia is special," said Elizabeth, watching the girl with kind eyes. "Oh, the gift in it is different, purer, more natural." "As it was in Carmen," added Professor Thorin, flipping through his old book, "and in Alice, though in different ways." Juna approached Sophia and Alice, creating with her shadows a dance that the other two soon began to accompany. It was a spectacle of light and darkness, beauty and mystery. "The advice is not just gathered to celebrate," said Elizabeth, her expression becoming more serious. "There are others like Sophia born in different parts of the world. The gift is awakening more strongly, and they will need guidance." Laura felt her heart tighten. "You mean Sophia?" "It will be a teacher," added Donna Brina, smiling. "Just as Alice has become. The gift is not just about controlling the shadows, it is about guiding those who are discovering their own gifts." Raphael stepped forward, his figure partially mixed with the shadows. "That's why I had to get away, so that Sophia could develop her home naturally, without the limitations of the common world." "And now," said Elizabeth, "it's time to expand the circle. Carmen has left a legacy that needs to continue." Professor Thorin opened his book on a specific page, revealing a world map marked with light points. Each light represents someone with the gift awakening. Some are children, as Sophia was. Others are older, late discovering their gifts. Juna stopped her shadow dance and approached. "That's why we need you, all of you. The advice is not only about those who have the gift, but also about the guardians like Marina, who help us maintain balance." Laura looked at her daughter, who now created complex forms with the shadows. Teaching Alice and Juna new standards that seemed naturally inventing, his heart was filled with different pride, mixed with a deeper understanding of everything that had happened. "What do we need to do?" she asked, her firm, determined voice. Elizabeth smiled, the shadows around her dancing gently. "First, we need to tell the story from the beginning, the true story of Carmen, the gift, and how it all started." The group gathered in Laura's living room, where Elizabeth opened an old leather he had brought with him. From within, he removed a different diary from the others, bound in violet velvet, with intricate silver designs on the edges. "This is Carmen's first diary," explained Elizabeth, her fingers caressing her cover with reverence. "She started it when she was only 12, the age at which her own gift awakened." Sophia sat on the floor next to Alice, both mesmerized by the energy emanating from the book. Juna joined them, forming a natural triangle. The shadows in the room seemed to move toward the diary, as if they recognized their importance. Carmen was born in a small town inside. Elizabeth began reading, her melodious voice giving her written words to life. "It was a different time when the unusual was feared and not understood. The shadows on the wall began to form images, responding to the story being told. Laura didn't know if she was Sophia, Alice, or Juna who controlled them. Maybe they were, all three together. The first time I realized it was different," the diary continued, "that's when the shadows started following me. Not as normal shadows, but as friends, like companions. They danced to me when I was sad, They told stories when I felt alone. Professor Thorin made notes on his own book, while Donna Brina smiled with tears in her eyes, reliving ancient memories. My mother was the first to understand, continued Elizabeth, reading. She could also see the shadows, although she couldn't control them like me. It was she who taught me that the gift was not a curse, but a responsibility. Marina took Laura's hand, both thrilled with the story. Raphael remained close, his presence mixed with the shadows of the corner of the room. The real challenge came when I found other children like me, the diary said, some frightened, some fascinated by their gifts. I realized that I was not alone, that there were others around the world connected with this ancestral gift. Elizabeth stopped reading for a moment, looking straight at Sophia. This is how Carmen began his mission, first as a teacher in the orphanage, then as guardian of all the special children he found. How did she find my father? Alice asked softly. Elizabeth became a few pages of the diary, reaching a specific passage. The shadows on the wall changed, forming the image of a young man between trees. Today I met someone different, read Elizabeth. He doesn't control shadows like me, but he can see them in their purest form. Thomas has a complementary gift to mine. As I shape the shadows, he can see through them, see the hidden paths between the worlds. Sophia got up suddenly, her eyes shining. Like me. Sometimes I can see ways in the shadows, places where they are thinner. Exactly, said Professor Thorin. You inherited both aspects of the gift. Carmen's ability to shape the shadows and special vision of Thomas. Laura watched her daughter with new eyes, better understanding the complexity of her gift. Raphael left the shadows, approaching Sophia. That's why I needed to learn so much from Carmen, he said, to understand how to guide someone with such a complete gift. Elizabeth continued to read, revealing how Carmen had created a protective network for those with the gift. The diary spoke of places, special, hidden in the shadows where children could learn and grow safely. The Santa Clara orphanage was just the beginning, explained Donna Brina. Carmen created several refuges around the world, places where the gift could flourish naturally. Juna got up, creating with her shadows a world map. These refugees still exist, she said, and now, with Sophia and other children awakening their gifts, we need more than ever. But most importantly, continued Elizabeth, turning the last page of the diary, that's what Carmen wrote in her last words for us. The shadows in the room seemed to be thickened, as if they also wanted to hear. Elizabeth read clearly and emotionally. The gift is not ours to keep, but to share. Each generation strengthens it. Every heart that accepts it makes it grow. One day, when the moment is right, the shadows will no longer hide, but bridges to unite worlds. And they will be the children, with their pure hearts and open minds, that will show us the way. Sophia, Alice, and Juna have put their hands on a circle. The shadows around them began to dance, creating patterns that seemed to tell 1,000 stories at the same time. Carmen knew, said Donna Brina softly. She knew this moment would arrive. The next morning dawned differently at Laura's house. The revelations of the night before had transformed not only their understanding of the gift, but also about their own family. Elizabeth and Professor Thorin had temporarily broken to seek more documents and records, leaving Juna to help with Sophia's training. The garden had turned into a kind of outdoor classroom where Sophia, Alice and Juna practiced together under the watchful eye of Raphael and Donna Brina. Marina organized Carmen's diaries in chronological order, creating a timeline that would help to better understand the evolution of the gift. It's amazing how each one has a different way of manifesting the gift, Laura noted, watching the three girls create unique patterns with the shadows. Carmen always said that the gift is like a fingerprint, explained Donna Brina. Unique to each person, even if you share common characteristics. Sophia had discovered that she could create small portals in the shadows, windows that showed distant places. Alice, in turn, could make the shadows gain three-dimensional, almost solid shapes. Juna had a special gift for music, making the shadows dance in tune with melodies that only she seemed to hear. Look, Mom, Sophia called Sophia. Through one of his shadow windows, Laura could see a snow-covered garden. That's where Elizabeth lives. I can see through the shadows there. Raphael approached proudly. She is learning to create bridges, he explained, as Thomas did. Marina found something interesting in one of Carmen's latest diaries. Here he talks about how the gift can evolve, she said, reading aloud. Carmen believed that over time and proper training, gift-bearers could not only see and control the shadows, but really travel through them. As you did, Laura told Raphael, finally understanding. In the last 3 years, yes, he confirmed. But it is a delicate process that requires a lot of control and preparation. It was Carmen who taught me, after we realized Sophia's potential. Juna stopped her shadow dance and approached the group. That's why the council is gathering again. With more children manifesting the gift, we need to be prepared to teach them properly. Donna Brina took the violet crystal that Sophia had found in Carmen's box. These crystals are not just focuses, he explained. They are safe points for when traveling through the shadows. Sophia ran to them, her eyes shining with excitement. Can I show something? Alice and Juna helped me find out. The group watched as Sophia held the crystal and closed her eyes. The shadows around him began to move differently, creating a spiral, pattern that resembled a miniature galaxy. Carmen called it a shadow map, Juna said softly. It's how we can see all the paths and connections between the bearers of the gift. In the center of the spiral, small points of light began to appear, like stars. Each throbbed with its own energy, unique. They are, aren't they? Asked Laura. The other children with the gift? Raphael nodded. Each light represents someone awakening to their gifts, and now, thanks to Carmen's teachings, we can find them before they feel alone or scared. Marina kept discovering more information in the diaries. Carmen predicted that, she said, thrilled. She wrote that one day the gift would manifest himself so strongly in someone who would be able to unite all the paths, all the shadows. Alice approached Sophia, placing her hand on her shoulder. That's why you're special, she said with love. You not only inherited your parents' gifts, but it also carries Carmen's legacy. The shadow map continued to shine, revealing more and more connections. Laura watched her daughter with a mixture of pride and admiration, finally understanding the true meaning of everything they had lived. And now? She asked, looking at Raphael. Now, he answered, smiling, we started the real journey. Together. Elizabeth returned the next morning bringing a series of mysterious objects, crystals of different colors, old mirrors with worked frames, and a set of new notebooks bound in the same violet velvet as Carmen's original diary. Each gift-bearer must have its own record, she explained, distributing the notebooks to Sophia, Alice, and Juna, not just to document your progress, but to guide those who will come later. Professor Thorin had turned the Laura Library into a kind of study room, with old maps covering the walls and shelves full of Carmen-recovered diaries. Marina spent hours there, transcribing and organizing the most important information. Formal training is different for each one, the teacher explained, adjusting his glasses as he watched Sophia create small portals between the shadows. Carmen has developed specific exercises for each type of manifestation of the gift. Sophia was sitting in the center of the library, surrounded by violet crystals. His eyes closed in concentration as the icy shadows around him danced as if they had their own lives. Take a deep breath, instructed Elizabeth kindly. Feel the flow of shadows as Carmen taught. They are not just darkness. They are ways, bridges between moments and places. Laura watched, fascinated as her daughter created increasingly complex images with the shadows. Alice and Juna were close, ready to help if necessary. It's like music, Sophia said softly, her eyes still closed. Each shadow has its own melody, and when all the shadows responded to his command, forming a kind of three-dimensional theater where scenes of the past began to unfold. Laura acknowledged Carmen's life, taken directly from her diaries. Extraordinary, said Professor Thorin, making frantic notes. She is not just controlling the shadows, she is accessing the memories contained in them. So Raphael emerged from a shaded corner, his face showing a mixture of pride and concern. She's progressing faster than any of us expected. As Carmen predicted, said Donna Brina, who watched everything from her favorite armchair. The gift is evolving, adapting to the new times. Marina found an interesting passage in one of the latest diaries. Carmen wrote about it, she said, reading aloud. The gift is not static, it grows and changes with each generation. What today seems impossible, tomorrow will be natural to them. Sophia opened her eyes, the shadow theatre fading gently. I saw more children, she said, her voice carrying wisdom beyond her years. Some are scared. They don't understand what is happening to them. Elizabeth and Professor Thorin exchanged significant looks. It's time to expand the circle, said Elizabeth. The advice needs to prepare to receive more members. Juna approached, Sophia helping her to get up. I can teach her how to create anchors, he offered, so she can keep in touch with the other children you are seeing. Isn't it dangerous? Asked Laura, the evident maternal concern in her voice. Not with proper training, Raphael replied, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. Juna has learned from the best. She is one of the youngest guardians we have. Alice began to organize the crystals in a specific pattern on the floor. Carmen has left detailed instructions on how to create safe points of connection, she explained. It's like building a protective network. A web of light in the shadows, added Sophia, her eyes shining with understanding. Professor Thorin opened a special map on his table, one that showed not only physical places, but also the shadow paths that connected them. Each new bearer of the gift strengthens this web, he explained. It makes it easier for the next to find your way. And that's why we need to act now, said Elizabeth, his serious voice. There are others like Sophia awakening their gifts, and they will need guides. Marina found another important annotation in the diaries. Carmen had a system, she said, excitedly. A way to identify and classify different manifestations of the gift. This can help us better understand how to train each new member. Laura watched everything with a mixture of admiration and apprehension. His small family had become much larger, a community of guardians and bearers of the gift, all united by Carmen's legacy. Sophia took her new violet diary and started drawing. The shadows around him seemed to flow directly into the paper, creating images that combined the present with glimpses of the future. What do you see, honey? Laura asked gently. Sophia smiled without taking her eyes out of her drawing. Hope, Mom. I see hope in the shadows. The week following was of intense learning. Elizabeth had turned Laura's garden into a makeshift school for Dom with specific areas for different types of training. Professor Thorin coordinated everything with scientific accuracy, documenting each progress, every discovery. The gift manifests itself in standards, he explained, showing his meticulously designed diagrams. Carmen identified 5 main types of manifestation, but Sophia seems to transcend these categories. The girl was sitting under the large garden tree, her violet diary open on her lap. Around it, shadows formed a kind of canopter, through which fragments from other places could be seen, such as windows for distant worlds. She creates bridges naturally, said Juna, who had become a kind of older sister to Sophia. Without needing the crystals as anchor, Alice practiced close her now more defined and controlled shadows. It's how Carmen described in her last writings, she said. The gift is evolving, finding new ways of expressing itself. Marina emerged from the library carrying more documents. I found something fascinating, she announced. Carmen not only predicted this evolution of the gift, she left specific instructions for when that happened. Laura and Raphael approached, curious. Donna Brina, who rested in her rocking chair, gave a knowledgeable smile. The paths of light, read Marina from the document. Carmen believed that one day the gift would manifest itself so purely that it would be able to turn the shadows into light, creating permanent bridges between the worlds. Sophia lifted her eyes from her diary. That's what I see in my drawings, she said. Bright paths through the shadows, connecting all the special people. Elizabeth approached, carrying a different crystal, this one of a deep blue that seemed to contain galaxies inside. Carmen kept this for the right time, she explained. It's the primordial crystal, the first she used to understand the gift. When Sophia touched the crystal, something extraordinary happened. The shadows around not only moved, they began to shine with their own light, smooth and welcoming. "The ways of light," Alice whispered marvelously. Professor Thorin quickly started noting notes. "It's just as Carmen described," he said, thrilled. "The transformation of shadows into bridges of light." Juna joined Sophia, and together began to explore this new manifestation of the gift. The light shadows danced around them, creating patterns that seemed to tell stories of the past and the future simultaneously. "I see more clearly now," said Sophia, her eyes shining with the reflection of the lights. "I can see them all. The other children with the gift. They are no longer scared. They are curious." Raphael knelt next to her daughter. "What else do you see, little?" "I see meetings," replied Sophia, concentrated, "in different places at the same time. As a large family gathering," Elizabeth smiled. "The Shadow Council is changing," she said. "Just like the gift, it needs to evolve." Marina continued to discover more information in Carmen's documents. "She planned everything," he said, admired. He left a complete guide for when this moment came. "And now?" Laura asked, watching her daughter create worlds of light and shadow with surprising naturalness. "Now," said Donna Brina, getting up from her chair, "we started the next phase. Carmen called the awakening." Sophia closed her diary, a serene smile on her face. "They are coming," she said simply. "All of them. And this time, they won't have to hide in the shadows." The transformation began at dawn. Sophia woke up before everyone, called for a force she couldn't explain. In the garden, the shadows and lights merged in a way never seen before, creating a spectacle that seemed to dance between the worlds. "They are coming," she announced when Alice and Juna found her under the large tree. The primordial crystal, in his hands, pulsed with a shine-on, responding to something that only Sophia could completely perceive. Elizabeth and Professor Thorin arrived hurriedly, bringing maps and instruments that had prepared at night. "The signs are stronger than ever," said the teacher, consulting a device that looked like a compass but pointed to the shadows instead of the north. "Carmen called this moment the Great Confluence," explained Donna Brina, who watched everything from her specially positioned chair in the garden. "When the paths between light and shadow become so thin that they can be naturally crossed." Laura and Raphael remained close to Sophia, marveling at her daughter's transformation. She was no longer just the little girl who played with shadows. She had become a living bridge between worlds. "Look!" exclaimed Juna, pointing to the sky. Above them, the clouds formed impossible patterns, creating spirals and shapes that resembled the drawings in Carmen's diaries. The shadows in the garden responded, raising as delicate curtains that revealed glimpses from other places. "It's the paths of light opening," said Alice, her voice, laden voice, just as Carmen described. Marina ran from the library, carrying one of the oldest diaries. "I found it," she exclaimed. "Carmen has left specific instructions for this moment. We need to create a circle of violet crystals, with the primordial crystal in the center." Quickly, everyone mobilized. Elizabeth and Juna positioned the crystals, while Professor Thorin made precise measurements of distances. Raphael and Laura helped Sophia position themselves in the center of the circle, the primordial crystal still pulsating into her hands. "Now, Sophia," said Elizabeth gently, "do as we practice. Open your heart to the ways." Sophia closed her eyes, her calm and controlled breath. The shadows and lights around them began to move more intensely, creating a kaleidoscope of images and sensations. "I can see them," she whispered. "All of them. There are so many." Through the light shade curtains, shapes began to materialize. First, a girl of about 7, her eyes shining with the same kind of light emanating from Sophia. Then a slightly older boy, bringing with him shadows that danced like birds. "Milan and Anna," said Sophia without opening her eyes. "They come on the other side of the ocean." More children began to appear, each bringing their own unique manifestation of the gift. A boy who made the shadows sing, a girl who turned light into visible stories, twins who could create solid light bridges between the spaces. Laura held Raphael's hand, thrilled. "It's amazing," she whispered. "It's just the beginning," he replied, smiling. "The gift is spreading, finding those who are ready to receive it." Donna Brina watched every new cheerful with teary eyes. Carmen always said that one day we would no longer have to hide, that the gift would find its natural place in the world. Professor Thorin could barely follow his notes, documenting each new manifestation of the gift he witnessed. "It's extraordinary," he exclaimed repeatedly. "Each of them brings something unique, something new." Elizabeth approached the first group of children, her welcoming and kind smile. "Welcome to the Shadow Board," she said. "Or maybe we should say to the Council of Light and Shadow." Sophia finally opened her eyes, her face illuminated by a serene joy. The primordial crystal in his hands now shone like a miniature star, connecting with the other crystals of the circle. "Carmen was right," said Alice, watching the children who continued to arrive. "This is just the beginning of the awakening." Juna was already organizing the children in small groups, identifying the different manifestations of the gift in each of them. "We will need more teachers," she said, looking at Elizabeth. "And more safe places to train," added Marina, consulting the maps. "Carmen's old refugees will not be enough." Sophia got up in the center of the circle, her little figure emanating a serene authority that surprised everyone. "We no longer need refugees," she said. "Carmen has shown us the way. Now we can create our own spaces between light and shadow." As to demonstrate her words, she raised the primordial crystal. The shadows and lights around responded, weaving in a new form, a space that existed among the worlds, perfect for those who walked between them. The space that Sophia created was unlike anything they had seen before, a place where light and shadow coexisted in perfect harmony, where the boundaries between the possible and the impossible dissolved gently. The newly arrived children explored marvelously, each discovering how their unique gift manifested in this new environment. "It's as Carmen described in her last writings," said Elizabeth, flipping through one of the latest diaries. "A place between places where the gift can flourish freely." Professor Thorin had organized a kind of initial record, documenting the different manifestations of the gift in each child. Milan could create music with the shadows that affected emotions. Anna turned memories into three-dimensional images of light. "Each of them brings something new to the advice," Juna noted, helping children organize themselves in affinity groups. "It's as if the gift is diversifying, finding new forms of expression." Laura watched fascinated as Sophia moved between the groups, perfectly comfortable in her guide role. Her little daughter had become extraordinary, a living bridge between worlds, a guardian of old and new secrets. "She's amazing," Raphael whispered, now permanently visible, without the need to hide in the shadows. Carmen always knew this would happen. Alice and the newly arrived twins, Luca and Lara, found that they could combine their gifts to create even more complex spaces in the place between worlds. Their shadows and lights intertwined, forming living classrooms that responded to each student's thoughts and needs. "The gift is evolving faster than we have ever imagined," said Donna Brina, watching everything with bright eyes. "And this time there is no fear, there is no need to hide." Marina continued to discover more secrets in Carmen's diaries. "She left instructions for each phase of the awakening," he explained, showing pages and more pages of detailed notes, as if I knew exactly how it would all happen. Sophia gathered all the children in a large circle, the primordial crystal floating gently above them, emanating a light that connected each of the gifts. "Carmen showed us the way," she said, her voice clear and confident. "But now we need to find our own way together." Elizabeth approached, carrying more violet crystals. "Each of you will receive a crystal," she explained. "Not just as a tool, but as a symbol of your connection to the advice." "And with everyone else who will come," added Alice, smiling at the children. Professor Thorin made a wide gesture, indicating the space around them. "This place that Sophia created will be our new school, a place where each manifestation of the gift can be explored and celebrated." "But what about our families?" Anna said shyly. "Will they understand?" Laura stepped forward. "They already understand," she said softly. "Somehow, they always knew that you were special." Raphael nodded, And now we no longer need to hide or pretend. The world is ready to know the magic that exists between light and shadow. Sophia raised the primordial crystal once again, and the space around them expanded, revealing new ways, new possibilities. Through the light and shadow curtains, they could see other places, other children awakening to their gifts. "This is just the beginning," said Sophia, her eyes shining with the reflection of 1,000 possible futures. "Carmen showed us the door. Now it is up to us to cross it." The primordial crystal throbbed one last time, and for a moment everyone could see what Sophia saw, a world where light and shadow danced in harmony, where the extraordinary and the common were in perfect balance, a world that Carmen had dreamed and now, finally, was beginning to come true. A month has passed since the start of Awakening. Laura's garden had become much more than a school. It was now a meeting point between worlds, a place where the extraordinary had become every day. The children came and came through the paths of light and shadow, bringing with them stories and discoveries from every corner of the world. That special morning, Elizabeth gathered all in the large circle of crystals. The space between worlds that Sophia had created pulsed with a different energy, as if she knew something important was about to happen. "We found Carmen's last diary," Elizabeth announced, holding a thin volume bound in white velvet. Unlike everyone else, she wrote him especially for this moment. Sophia, sitting between Alice and Juna, held the primordial crystal, which responded to the presence of the diary with a more intense shine. The other children, now more than 30, formed a perfect circle around them. "Carmen knew this day would arrive," said Donna Brina, her voice loaded with emotion. "The day when the gift would no longer be a secret to keep, but a gift to be shared." Professor Thorin had organized all the data collected during that month. Each child brought something unique, he explained, showing his meticulously organized records. Together they expanded our understanding of the gift beyond any expectation. Laura and Raphael watched proudly as Sophia rose, the primordial crystal floating gently above her extended hands. Around the other children began to manifest their gifts in harmony, creating a symphony of light and shadow that filled the space of magic. Elizabeth opened the white diary and began reading. "For those who find these words, when I write this, I see through the shadows of time. I see a special girl born of light and shadow who will unite all the paths. I see children around the world awakening to their gifts, free from the fear that once kept us hidden." The gift was never about controlling the shadows or creating light. It was about unity, about finding beauty in the balance between the worlds. Each of you carries a part of this balance. Sophia, little guardian of the ways, you are more than I ever dreamed. In you, I see the future I have always expected. A world where light and shadow dance together, where the extraordinary and the common are in perfect harmony. For all the others who carry the gift, you will never need to hide. The time of the shadows as a refuge is over. Now is the time to shine, to show the world the magic that has always existed in their hearts. And for those who keep and protect the gift, always remember, love is the most powerful magic of all. It was love that maintained our hope alive through the years of darkness, and it is love that now illuminates our way to the future. The advice is no longer just the shadows or light. It is a council of harmony, where each gift finds its place, where each heart finds its home. With all my love and hope, Carmen. When Elizabeth finished reading, the whole space seemed to be pulsed with emotion. Sophia raised the higher primordial crystal, and all the children responded, their own crystals shining in unison. "That's why the awakening has happened now," said Alice, understanding. "The world was ready. We were ready." Marina, who had devoted so much time to Carmen's diaries, smiled through her tears. "She built the way, piece by piece, so that we came to this moment." Sophia began to create something new with her shadows and light, no longer a space between worlds, but a bridge that connected the ordinary to the extraordinary, the possible to the impossible. "This is our true purpose," she said, her clear and confident voice. "Not only use our gifts, but share them. Show the world that magic has always been here, waiting to be discovered." The children raised one by one, each contributing to their demonic to the bridge that Sophia was creating. It was a breathtaking view, light and shadow intertwined in perfect harmony, creating a path that everyone could see and follow. Carmen's legacy, Donna Brina whispered, finally complete. On the morning of the big day, Laura's garden shone with a different light. The bridge that Sophia and the other children had created shined like a rainbow of shadows and light, connecting not just spaces, but hearts and dreams. Elizabeth had organized a special celebration, not just for the council, but for all families. Parents, brothers, and guardians from around the world had been invited to witness the magic their special children could create. "It's like a circle closing," said Donna Brina, watching families arrive through the paths of light and shadow. "Carmen always said that one day we would no longer have to choose between our gifts and our loved ones." Laura, hand in hand with Raphael, noted Sophia to receive the guests with a natural grace that made her heart overflow with pride. Her little daughter had become a living bridge between worlds, a guardian of old and new dreams. Professor Thorin had prepared a special presentation, a demonstration of how each unique manifestation of the gift contributed to the whole. Milan made the shadows sing. Anna turned memories into luz. The twins fell bridges between the spaces, and each child added their own magic to the symphony. "It's more beautiful than anything I've ever dreamed," said Alice, now a respected teacher, among younger children. Juna agreed, her own gifts blooming in unexpected ways. Marina came from the library carrying Carmen's last gift, a crystal box that had never been able to open. "I think now is the moment," she said, handing the box to Sophia. With a soft touch of the primordial crystal, the box opened, revealing its contents. Crystal seeds, each shining with its own light. "For the future," read Sophia on the small card accompanying the seeds. "For when other gardens need to flourish." Elizabeth smiled, understanding. Carmen wasn't just preparing a place, she was preparing a start. Sophia distributed the seeds among the children, and together they planted them at different points of the garden. Where each seed touched the ground, a new path of light and shadow began to sprout. "The Gardens of Harmony," announced Professor Thorin, making his final notes. "Places where gift can grow freely, where magic can flourish in the sight of everyone." Families wondered, marveling while their special children created beauty from the balance between light and shadow. There was no fear no longer. There was no need to hide. "This is just the beginning," said Sophia, the primordial crystal throbbing gently in her hands. "Every garden we plant will be a new beginning, a new chance to show the world the magic that has always existed." Laura felt tears of joy drip by her face as she watched her daughter. No longer the girl scared with her mysterious gifts, but a young guardian, safe from her place in the world. Raphael hugged his family, finally free to be present completely. "Carmen would be proud," he said softly. The crystal seeds began to sprout, creating arches of light and shadow that connected to each other, forming a network of paths that extended beyond the horizon. "The world is changing," said Donna Brina, her radiant face. "And this time it will change for the better." Sophia gathered all the children in one last circle, their crystals shining in harmony. Together they created something new, not just a bridge or a way, but a promise of a future where magic would no longer have to hide in the shadows, where each gift would be celebrated, where each heart would find its place between light and darkness. And so, in the garden that had once been just an ordinary place, a new era began. An era of harmony, from magic to daylight, of dreams that could finally be lived to the full. Carmen's legacy lived in every smile, at each manifestation of the gift, in every new garden that sprouted, and in dancing shadows and playful light. The stories would continue to be told, the gifts would continue to flourish, and the magic would continue to find new ways to shine.